I could overlook a lot of the problems in Yu-Gi-Oh! If the game wasn't so expensive, but the high price tag just makes everything about Yu-Gi-Oh! Strained. I would put the price as the main reason as to why the card game is so slow at getting new players. Very few people can afford it. Every new staple card is about $100 each, and that's just not okay. If I didn't know any better, I'd say Konami hated poor people. Now, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but price is such a problem. To put it in perspective, I recently bought a full competitive Warhammer 40k team, the mini tabletop war game that's notorious for being expensive, all for less than what a meta Yu-Gi-Oh deck would cost me. And that's including the paints and paintbrushes I had to buy to get into the hobby. Yu-Gi-Oh recently has been overtaking Modern Magic in prices, and what's scary about that is that every one of these expensive Yu-Gi-Oh cards has been printed in the past 2 or 3 years. Now you might say that Yu-Gi-Oh's pricing issue is fine because you can just resell them, but Konami's reprint policy turns cards into ticking time bombs of lost money. Konami's process is to print overpriced, often short-printed, meta-relevant cards, then for at least a year, these will remain out of reach of the average person, being meta staples. Think Meta Zodiacs, the Dogmatica engine, every new pot card, etc. This ruins the ability to play for most people. Then they will reprint the cards into the ground for 1 or 2 sets. Once these cards have been completely milk dry of their ability to sell a set, Konami will power creep or just outright ban them. There's a reason ban lists come very quickly after a Mega 10. So Yu-Gi-Oh has an expensive card problem, but let's get into why. It starts from the Konami box structure and what you actually get out of buying boxes. A box is a collection of card packs that you open for a random chance at obtaining cards. Typically, a box has some preset guarantees of what you'll get out of them, or at least a rough ratio. Yu-Gi-Oh boxes in particular have a few reasons as to why the cards out of them are so expensive. First off, there's almost no alternate arts like there are in other card games. Alt arts help control the more expensive price of what would be collector's cards. Yu-Gi-Oh only does basically impossible to get alternate rares, which doesn't really help the issue. Secondly, Yu-Gi-Oh will short print cards in side sets. This should be an illegal practice, but I'll get into that later. Third and most importantly is the all for secret rare to box ratio when compared to every other card game. In Yu-Gi-Oh, when you buy a sealed box of packs, you're averaging 2 to 3 secret rares and 6 to 8 ultras for a price that starts around $60. There are about 10 secrets to pull from. In Magic the Gathering, you're guaranteed about 4 to 5 mythics, and a rare in every pack. These go for about $91, with 15 mythics to pull from. Vanguard boxes go for $45 to $55, with about 4 triple rares guaranteed. These boxes have 5 triple rares to pull from, and about 15 double rares. For Digimon, there are 10 SR per set, and 2 SEC per set is usually average. Boxes go for $80 MSRP, but stores will sell them for as low as $65. We can take that the average cost to get a secret rare in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going to be about $30 in boxes. This is about $10 over the Magic Gathering average. So the Yu-Gi-Oh box structure is the most costly and expensive in the TCG marketplace if you're looking for the highest rarity of cards. And it really only comes close to Magic. But Magic has a few things that keep the price down. First is the draft format, which is a format all around building decks based on cards pulled from packs, and it helps keep the card supply high. More packs open means more cards to sell, which means more sellers and lower prices. Yu-Gi-Oh used to have a draft format called Battle Packs, but Konami discontinued it after failing to support it. Second, Magic has alt arts as before mentioned. Third, Magic has different types of every booster set, where different ratios are used to determine pools. This leaves Yu-Gi-Oh in being the worst card game for straight up buying product if you actually want cards. Just a reminder, in Yu-Gi-Oh there's no guarantee of pulling any secret rares at all, although that's anything but impossible. What if I told you that boxes have something else dragging down the value and keeping up the price of secret rares? That's right, it's dead secret rares. Not every secret rare in a set is good. In fact, we can break down almost every main Yu-Gi-Oh set into the same rough breakdown of 1 to 3 high-value secret rares, 2 to 6 middle-price secret rares, and lastly 1 to 3 abysmally bad secret rares. The expensive cards typically will immediately make back the price of the box itself, while the bad secret rares will have little to no worth. In my favorite example, on one hand we have D-Boys, and on the other hand we have a Volzor Dolkia. While this isn't a problem when buying massive amounts of boxes, the small-scale variability means buying boxes isn't reliable for casual players or people who just want to pick up a box for fun. And the worst part is, it doesn't even have to be this way. OCG boxes are structured very differently. Instead of having 8 or 10 cards locked only in the secret rare slots, every secret rare card is also available in the super rare slot, with the secret rare and collector's rare being upgrades. This means the average price of Yu-Gi-Oh cards is ridiculously lower in the OCG. Not only that, it makes the average pack have a lot more value. Konami is actively scamming America and Europe because we're suckers and won't do anything. As of right now, the Rank 2 Splite monster, the most expensive one, at the date of writing this video in the OCG, you can get for the equivalent of $9. I'll eat a copy of Gigantic Splite if Konami lets a Splite monster go for only that price in the TCG. So the secret rare printing issue creates some expensive chase cards. But surely all these cards are only archetypal boss monsters and unique text, right? They wouldn't print borderline competitively required cards in Secret Rare, would they? Well, that's where the $300 deck price minimum comes into play. Every deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Needs some sort of Secret Rare staple to play at an optimal level. Be it a hand trap like Ash Blossom, a blowout like Forbidden Droplets, or a consistency booster like whatever the new pot card is. These cards are one of the biggest ways modern decks facilitate interacting with the opponent. And adding this up, it means you end up with a game where 90% of the decks need to spend money on a few expensive chase cards to even be able to keep up with the locals. The least expensive option is the hand trap package, where 12 hand traps will run you about $150, depending. But running this by itself is becoming decreasingly popular in the metagame. An anti-hand trap package will cost a bit more, around $200. 3 Forbidden Droplets is a fat $270. A playset of Pot of Prosperity is a whopping $390. What makes these staples hurt so much is that they aren't even the deck itself. It's not your $300 adventure engine, it's not a $400 Sword Soul core, it's the bare minimum that's needed to engage in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Be it Fluffles or Despia, it doesn't matter. You need these cards, and the tournament results overwhelmingly show this, as we can see from the results of YCS Guadalajara and YCS Charlotte. This chapter gets to a more difficult topic in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community. That is intentional power creep and planned obsolescence. With new strategies like Branded and Splight, the game is in the middle of another massive push for power creep. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Is always in the state of power creep and new meta decks. This is just how Konami and a lot of other card games justify selling new sets. It might not seem like a big problem, as Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a relatively massive set of decks that perform well, but let's put this into perspective with just how many meta and relevant decks there have been over the years that have been power crept. Let me show you the complete tier list of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sorry for showing a bit of a blurred image. This list is for a series I also do on this channel. We rank every deck. I don't really want to let you guys see this all yet, but I'm going to show a few highlights. Now we can look at the 5 or so decks at the top of the list, and the 30 so below it as being relevant. But if we look at the wide variety of decks at lower tier, we can see all the previously expensive decks that are not relevant either through power creep or the ban list. Cosmos used to be an entire meta deck with Dark Destroyer fetching $150 each on the market. Now the deck struggles compared to anything. Burning Abyss used to be extremely meta-defining and relevant long-term, but over the years it has been forced lower and lower on the tier list, and now only works with the brand new Phantom Knight engines and Branded. It also doesn't quite work with the older BA cards in the way you'd want it to. Look at Gladiator Beast. They're at full power, and they don't even touch the metagame. I picked some older examples, but the same is true with newer decks like Dogmatica. If power creep doesn't sell new relevant cards, the ban list certainly will. While power creep is more of a slow pushing force, the ban list is a hammer actively smashing down on people to get new decks. At Emancipator, Tri-Brigade, Drytron, Lyrilusk, Infernoble Knights, Trickstar, and Lunalights, just to name a few decks from more recent history that have been actively taken away from players to push them on to buying new strategies. A ban list, of course, needs to exist, especially in a game like Yu-Gi-Oh!, but Konami is clearly using it to push new products instead of just to balance the game and get rid of problematic strategies. This is why most cards never get hit until after they get a second printing or the main set is mostly out of print. I talked about the post-Megaton ban list, but we can also see examples like Prank Kids Meow Mew, which is now safe to hit after it got reprinted in Maximum Gold Eldorado. I get new cards need to sit in the format for some time before they get banned, and you gotta print new cards to make money. But I feel like this method rips more money out of the consumer hands through anti-consumer means. I personally feel it's dishonest, but spending $1,000 on a deck just to have it get banned or power crept 6 months to a year later is the standard in Yu-Gi-Oh!, so what can anyone really do about it? Well, box ratio and power creep are a problem, but it's a good thing it can't get worse, right? Well, Konami also happens to engage in one of the most atrocious policies I've ever seen. It's called short printing. So when you open a box of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, there's supposed to be a set chance of pulling a card at a certain rarity. Like if you'd open up a pack of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, you should have an even chance of seeing each secret rare. Short printing is the concept of having cards be underrepresented and harder to pull out of packs. Now, this is supposed to happen due to the natural printing process, or at least it should. But when we look at Konami, only the most important cards in a set ever seem to be short printed. This famously started with Necros Abrinac in 2015, who instead of being pulled at a rate of one a box, got short printed into one every other case. That is case as in a collection of boxes. This made Necros Abrinac a $150 card and made the format unaffordable. And to add insult to injury, the Secret Forces, the pack this archetype is from, was one of the best-selling Yu-Gi-Oh! Sets at the time. This trend continues, but there are a few highlights. Eldritch the Golden Lord was short-printed in Secret Slayers, leaving him a $150 card on release. Sky Striker Mobilize Engage was short-printed in Dark Saviors, letting the card hit over $100 on release. The problem got so bad that Konami publicly announced that they have stopped short printing cards in main sets. But if you notice, the 3 examples previously mentioned were from side sets. So this is still very much an ongoing problem, although most recently Konami has refrained from overly short printing cards in the new Ghosts from the Past and in Grand Creators. Now, I mentioned this was border illegal line in the chapter title. Why is that? Well, it's about gambling law and loot boxes. Well, it's no secret that trading card games operate on a very similar level of loot boxes and straight-up gambling. It is to such a point that most trading card companies will never outright mention the secondary market. In recent years, many countries such as Belgium and the Netherlands have taken increasingly strict legal policies against loot boxes. And while these don't apply to card games as they are right now, the reasoning behind their legislation is shockingly close to the situation Yu-Gi-Oh! Is put into. In 2018, the Netherlands Gaming Association conducted a study that concluded video games with loot boxes violated Netherlands gambling law under the reasoning that the content of these loot boxes is determined by chance and that the prizes to be won can be traded outside of the game. The prizes have a market value. This sounds shockingly similar to the trading card game market. Change one word in a sentence to trading card boxes and you're there. One half-step many companies do to halfway compensate for loot boxes is by disclosing the odds of pulling a particular item. This is where short printing really messes up transparency, as there's no way for a player to know pull ratios before someone somewhere buys a lot of product. Honestly, I personally feel like short printing is awful, misleading, and just anti-consumer. But it's not illegal as it stands right now. I just worry that as trading card games make more and more money, someone in government will take an interest and pass some regulation. Honestly, anti-consumer is just how I would describe Konami's whole business model. The game for the most part is good, it's just not easy to get cards, especially in the current economy. Bit of a miscellaneous segment here where I respond to some potential criticism of this video in a question-answer format. Don't other games power creep as well? And what about set rotation? Well, set rotation is an honest practice, while selectively banning cards and power creeping is less transparent. Set rotation games like Pokemon and Standard Magic are also significantly cheaper. Power creeping games as a whole is a hard topic. It's no secret that older formats like Legacy Magic and Premium Vanguard are faster and more powerful, but those games don't operate on the archetype system like Yu-Gi-Oh! Does, and still somehow have less power creep than how insane Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. Hasn't Yu-Gi-Oh! Always been expensive? Yes. Yu-Gi-Oh! Still using outdated predatory methods of making money and distributing their game. It's not 2002 anymore. And we should update Yu-Gi-Oh! To be more like other card games with easier to get cards. Or better yet, update it like their own card game in Japan to be easier to get cards. If Konami's practices are so anti-consumer, then why do they still make money? Well, that's the big question that plagues modern media. In Konami's case, it's because it gets whales or people who are heavily dedicated to the game to buy more and more products. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is no longer a card game primarily aimed at selling to kids in a Walmart, and hasn't been for a while. But the issue is with how Konami doesn't respect its consumers and actively uses a variety of tactics to drive up the secondary market prices and decrease card pull rates to get people to buy more products. Konami isn't going to stop, and whales aren't going to stop buying Yu-Gi-Oh! Product. Well, unless the success of another card game like Digimon catches up to the big 3 of card games. But that's a discussion for another video. Although, just being aware of the awful tactics Konami employs to remove players from their money can help a lot. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.